My guest today is Ethan Macdonald, the managing partner at the holding company called Macdonald Financial. Ethan is in the very early days of his entrepreneurial journey, but has already acquired two companies whose collective EBITDA is 4 million. And what's even more remarkable is that Ethan is only 24 years old. So thanks a lot for coming to the Holdco Builders podcast, Ethan.
Hey, Mick, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's quite an honor to be invited onto a podcast like this. So.
No, the pleasure is mine. So let's get started. We're gonna definitely talk about the deals you've done so far, but give us a bit of background before actually making those acquisitions. Like, what were you doing before?
So I guess it kind of starts with my father. He's an entrepreneur himself, and he owns and operates a fuel hauling company in Northern Alberta. So I've been working with him for the last 5 years since I was 19. I did have a brief stint in college in business, but I ended up dropping out after the first year to continue working here with my dad. Basically, from that point, we kind of plan to grow together. We're partners, and we figured the best route to do that would be via acquisitions. Now my dad is semi-retired, so that kind of fell on to me to do that. And so far I've been enjoying the work, and it's quite fulfilling and quite a fun job, I have to say. So yeah, that's kind of my background.
You mentioned dropping out from university. Obviously very easy to say that, but I think in real life it's I've been putting university pause twice in my life, and then going back and eventually graduated. So I think it's easier said than done. But what was your thought process of, or how long were you thinking of this, that, okay, I'm going to actually drop out from university and I'm going to go all in working or being an entrepreneur? Right.
So the plan was for me to come back home for the summer and kind of do a data entry job at my dad's company, learn it, and see how it goes. I mean, I really was, at the time I was kind of confused to even say, what does my dad do? I wouldn't have been able to fully tell you. So I learned quite a bit that summer. And I remember in university, it was a late night and I was doing an essay in film class. It was one of my electives. And I was thinking to myself, well, I have a great father. He's a smart man, a good entrepreneur. And here I am doing an essay on the Wizard of Oz to get a business degree. So when I had started with my dad's company, I basically asked him, Dad, can I just stay here and study under you, essentially? Like, I understand I won't have a degree in anything, and if our company goes bankrupt tomorrow, it may be hard for me to be employed, but I think I'll bet on myself and your teaching rather than the traditional route. And well, I hope it'll pay off one day.
And what was his reaction when you said that to him?
It was mixed. I mean, I don't think he was 100% pumped about it. And at the time too, I would have been the first one in our family to get a formal education like that. So I think that part was kind of sad. But after looking back on it, it's been 5 years since we decided to do that, and I think both of us would say now we made the right decision. Well, at least I hope he would say that.
So you said working for your dad, and he's been a long time entrepreneur. First question, what did you do there? How was your day-to-day? What were you doing and for how long? And then maybe question number 2, what did you learn from your dad? Because I think this is so crucial of the early days of exactly what type of lessons you're getting industry-wise and everything.
That's right, yeah. So what I started off was just data entry, trying to learn all the facets. There would be some days I was in the warehouse stacking orders for customers coming in using the forklift. I've done accounts payable before. The big jump was we have a contract at a remote site on an oil sand here close to where I live. It's about 2 hours north of where I live. So one winter, I sent myself out there to live out there at the work camp, and run the operation for the winter. And at that time I was 21, and that was probably the biggest uh-oh moment where you're like, okay, I'm in charge of people for the first time, and the day-to-day operation is dependent on me. So that was probably the biggest learning curve. As far as what my dad taught me, I think a lot of it was the structure of a business. So my grandparents started the companies 40 years ago or so, and I think what my dad did from them is, so they had the kind of startup spirit where they would, do it yourself and work 80 hours a week if you had to do it. And then when my dad kind of came in and turned those into corporations, if you will, or proper management structures from you got a CEO and then you got a COO and that sort of thing. So I think streamlining and making the companies more efficient is my dad's specialty, and that's probably the biggest lesson he's taught me in business.
And was your dad hard on you throughout
No,
this time?
no, you know what? Me and my dad are probably best friends. He's a groomsman for me at my wedding this past summer, so him and I get along well. We've always been good friends. And you know what? As far as people, the old saying, don't get into business with family. It hasn't applied to us. We've been great partners. We have the same goals, and I want to help him. He wants to help me. So I'm very grateful for my dad.
And from which moment you were like, okay, I would like to buy a business myself, and how was the decision making behind this? Because I think this is, you said your grandparents started the business. Ideally, if you think in maybe 10, 20 years to the future, you would be probably taking over the dad's business. So
Right.
when did you make the decision, or how did it happen that you end up acquiring other businesses?
Right. So without going into too much detail, because I don't want to breach any NDAs, I essentially saw an LBO for the first time, and you got to remember at that time words like EBITDA, VTB, vendor take back, senior debt. Those were foreign words to my dad and I. Like we were, he was a businessman, not necessarily on the finance side of things, and so I had never heard of these things. So I kind of took it upon myself to learn these terms and what they meant, and analyze the LBO. And when I started understanding, and I was saying to my dad, I'm like, these guys offering the LBO, they got a good little plan on the go here. Like, they're going to acquire a company essentially for free in 5-6 years. It'll have paid for itself. And I mean, the existing owner of the companies, they make out well, but I mean, maybe we should consider to do this. The company that I was working at, my dad's company, it's doing well, and we figured that might be a more aggressive route of growth. So I said, why don't we try this ourselves? I'll learn it. I'll learn the finance side of the things, dealing with the banks and whatnot, finding the companies that are worthwhile, and then that will be my gig. And then we will essentially start adding more to our net worth rather than me going into debt to acquire his existing net worth, if that makes sense.
So you mentioned them. How did the company, or how did this opportunity came to you? Through a broker, or it's a competitor, or?
So we made the plan. Okay, let's go. Good idea, Ethan. Let's go buy a company. All right. Well, as you know, easier said than done. So I started reaching out to brokers because, well, I don't know, like, it seems kind of funny to go knock on some business's door and say, hey, I'm a 24 or 23, 24-year-old. Can I buy your company? So I reached out to brokers, and essentially what they had said is, here are the fees, and this is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in the end to do this. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm not doubting that you guys will get me a good company and this will work, but I think I would be doing a bit of a disservice to myself if I just abandoned my own ability and went with you guys. So I'm going to try it myself. If in, say, 6 months I'm unsuccessful, then maybe we can revisit this, and then I guess I will finance the fees for you guys, because I can't pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars out of my own pocket. So I went to the customers of our fuel business, and what I was able to find was a good company that pays its bills on time and was known around town, many, many years in the business, and about a 30-second drive from our company here in town. So I phoned him up, cold call. He didn't know me, I didn't know him. I said, hey, my name is Ethan Macdonald. I work at Chinook Fuels, and basically I'm calling you. I hope you don't take offense to this, but I'm trying to. I hope you take this as a compliment. I really admire your business and your structure, and I hear lots of good things. You have a good reputation. Would you be open to having a conversation about some sort of partnership or acquisition? And he said, well, anything's for sale. so we met about 2 days later, and right after that he expressed interest. I said we can get a deal done. We can format the percentages how you feel comfortable. Are you looking to retire in the future? Are you looking to stay on and sell a minority stake? Do you want to be 50-50 partners? Do you want to be 51-49? What works for you? And at the time he was kind of I guess considering retirement, but as far as I was concerned, I think he's the expert in this industry. So to me, it's more of an asset if he stays on. So we kind of convinced him, why don't we stay on for the next 5-6 years together, see what we can do with this thing, and then look at another exit in that time frame, and then you kind of get 2 payments. And he agreed to it, and probably a month later we had a deal in place, and then the deal closed on June 1st. I contacted him right around mid-February, and then by June 1st we had the deal in place for both companies. So yeah, that's how that came about.
And this was this year, 2024, right?
That's right. Yeah. So just recently, we've just been in for a couple months.
Okay. And how was the whole process, the due diligence? Can you maybe share more details about the structure?
Yeah. So it's completely financed by the bank. I went to the bank with the financials of the companies, and I said, here's what I got. Here's the EBITDA that I've calculated. This is the price that he wants, that we've agreed on. Is this something you can do for us? And they said, yeah, that's like, we're a bank. We're in the business of selling you debt. So then came the projections, the requirements for the bank. So like I said, I have no accounting background, I have no finance background. So they say, okay, send us the cash flow projection for 5 years. I'm like, how do I do that? So I'm Googling, YouTubing, watching all these, trying to get courses, trying to figure out what this is. And I do it, I figure it out, and I send them the cash flow forecast. And they say, great, that works. Okay, now can you send us the income statement forecast? And I'm like, how do I knew what an income statement was, but to the forecast, I had no idea. So I did the same thing. I'm like, okay, well, if I did the cash flow, I can do the financial statements. So I go through, same thing, learn it, put it into the Excel sheet, send it to the bank, and I'm praying, please, I hope they don't see that this is some 24-year-old kid who just Googled this and YouTubed it a few hours before submitting it, or a few days before submitting it. And luckily they've taken it. And then what I had done with as far as the structure of the deal is the one that was offered, I took it and turned it into our offer to them. So I changed out all the numbers, put it in the Northern Diesel and First Fleet numbers, and presented it to them and say, this is how we'll pay you back. Or sorry, this is you'll get paid out on day one. This is how we're going to pay the bank back. And then yeah, that was kind of the basis of it. It was a lot of me just figuring out on the go. I mean, it would have been nice to maybe know somebody like yourself at the time and be like, hey Mick, what is this? How do I do this? Is this right? Because you can't just there's nobody to ask really, if you know what I mean. Like,
so and for how long the owner is willing to stay, and what were maybe some of the biggest risks you consider when actually doing all this?
Yeah, so the owner, we have no formal plan to have him retire or exit. It's for the foreseeable future. That was what we agreed to. There's no set exit plan. The biggest risk would be probably losing him, because I think he's quite a popular guy in town. and he's got a strong customer base. I think based on himself, he's kind of the company. He's a great guy. He's a very knowledgeable and an efficient owner. So I think as far as risk goes, if he were to want to exit earlier than we were done paying down our debt, that would be kind of a, I don't know if I could fill his shoes right away like that. So that would probably be one of the risks. But what I really liked about the company, especially it being my first time, is how consistent it was. The last 5-6 years, they made the same amount of money, about the same amount of revenue, over and over and over again. So I think that was kind of a safety mechanism for me, if you will, to ensure that, okay, I don't need to 10x this company to put food on my table. If this company continues on the same path it's done for the last 5-6 years, I'll get out of this. All right, I'll make some money, and then if I need to exit with him, then we can exit, or maybe at that time we can explore another owner operator, that kind of thing.
Did you have this conversation with your father about who's gonna buy this business, or he was right away that, okay, Ethan, you should go for it?
Yeah, no, so that was definitely the plan, because of course there was the idea of me buying this existing business that he owns. That's kind of the natural evolution of a father-son business relation, and we kind of decided, okay, let's expand this thing, and then you buy it. My dad does own some of it. Like we are partners in it. I'm the majority, I guess, of our 50%. But he was always on board. He wanted me to do my own thing, and he's happy with what we got. I hope.
Super awesome. That's so awesome. So this is then company Northern Diesel, right?
Yep.
What exactly is this business doing?
So it is a towing, it's a hauling, emergency winching. Basically, I live in Fort McMurray, Alberta, which is right next to the oil sands. So I don't know if you're familiar with Syncrude or Suncor. It's kind of our big oil producers in Canada, and they're 20 minutes from my house. So we are a completely dependent economy on the oil sands, and so that means tons of hauling trucks, big heavy-duty machines coming through our highways every day, which means lots of accidents and lots of things that need to be hauled, right? So Northern Diesel hauls any sort of cargo mostly for the oil sands or oil sand adjacent companies, and then when things get in a jam, we have towing capabilities, and then I guess the story goes that, well, my partner was doing this and he was hauling. Lots of the times when things were broken, they were bringing them to mechanic shops for their customer. So the customer would get in an accident, crash, and need to be hauled. He goes, picks them up, brings them to a mechanic shop, and he said, "Well, I can just do I can do this myself. I'll bring them to the mechanic shop myself." So a lot of customers are like, "Hey, can you come pick us up, Northern Diesel?" "Sure, we're going to bring you to First Fleet Maintenance to get repaired. Does that work for you?" And they said, "Yep, sounds good to me." That eliminates me having to find a mechanic shop. So that's kind of how First Fleet Maintenance was born into that.
And how about the towing business? Is it if and how cyclical it is? I mean, I know some similar businesses in Norway.
Yep.
Obviously, there is more need for this type of service during the heavy winter. So
Yeah.
how is it there?
Yeah, so I think as far as I know, we're pretty consistent revenue based, because there's lots of logging that Northern Diesel does in the summertime. So that kind of evens out the towing part of it. But yes, you're right. The towing is the big deal in the winter, because roads are slippery, buses are going into the ditch. So yeah, it's definitely that aspect is dependent on the snowy weather, but the company does well in the other months. There's actually not too much of a down part, especially compared to the fuel hauling company that my dad owns. That's a completely winter-based company. It's very busy in the winter, and then it slows quite a bit in the summer months.
And I guess it's pretty like asset-heavy business when it comes to all the big trucks and all that. So how new or old is the machinery?
So the you're right. It's a very asset heavy company. My partner is a mechanic by trade, so he's much more comfortable with older trucks, say like 2010s, 2015s, and he can fix them up. And he's got an eye for flipping these trucks on auctions. So he buys and sells all the time, kind of, I guess you would say, on the side. As far as our like what I was used to is that at the fuel company, it was always new. Try and buy the new trucks, sell them in 4 years, buy them again, basically. But this has kind of opened my eye to being like, okay, well, if you have capable mechanics, somebody with knowledge in the trucking markets, it can be worthwhile, and you can save quite a bit of money because these trucks have become so expensive over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, I think they've gone up about $100,000 in price over the last 5 years in Canada anyway. Yeah.
So Northern Diesel was the acquisition number one, but you also bought the second business.
Yeah.
You mentioned a bit the First Fleet Maintenance.
Right.
How did this happen?
Yeah. So basically we approached Northern Diesel, and First Fleet operates out of the same building as Northern Diesel. So the laydown, basically the parking lot for the trucks is for Northern Diesel, and then the shop part is for First Fleet, where they work on the trucks. It would have been kind of a funny deal to just acquire one and not the other, because it's like, okay, you're kind of missing out here. And then as far as my partner was concerned, he did a lot of inter-party transactions, or intercompany transactions, where they're sending money to and from each other, just paying each other's companies. So it would have been kind of an accounting nightmare as well, I imagine, to be like, okay, well, 50% stays with this one, but then that one's fully them. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of just worked out that way, and both companies were healthy companies and kind of reliant on each other. So it was just kind of an added bonus, in my opinion, to be able to partner in that one as well.
Did you do the deals at the same time, or the First Fleet Maintenance came a bit later?
No, we ended up doing them the same time. Just even like my lawyer fees were much less that way. It was kind of just get it all over and done with. Yeah, and then that was it.
You have mentioned your partner many times. How did you find him?
So yeah, well, like I was kind of saying there, I phoned him up, and just cold called him. But he's been a great guy. Like he kind of reminds me of my my grandfather a bit, and he's got the business sense, but I admire his operational sense. He's a mechanic by trade, and he drives truck too. So he's kind of a do-it-all, and he's kind of the definition of self-made. He moved here. He's from Australia. He moved here and started this company. After working at a similar company, he realized I can do this on my own, and then him and his wife started building, and the company became a success. It's been around for 15 plus years in our small city here, and he's done very well. So I quite admire him.
So 4 million EBITDA, 2 companies. I mean, that's a big business. How much capital did you need to invest to do all this, or how was it?
Well, yeah, I won't go into the specific amounts, just out of respect for him, but the whole deal was able to be financed by the bank. They were on board to do the whole thing with us, just because the cash flow of the purchasing companies could maintain this sort of debt, which was kind of a learning curve to realize that was one of the big aha moments where I realized, okay, well, private equity essentially leverages debt for 4 to 5 years, and then can exit if they so choose, with money that they had never spent. And I have done the same kind of idea with rental properties. I own a couple of rental units in town, and I just was like, okay, this is scaling that idea to the extreme, and of course there's more risk with doing that, but the payout is much more handsome than the margin I make on my rent from my tenants.
I'm still curious, what were maybe some of the challenges? because there are people who try to do this for years and they are not able to actually acquire a business. And you're buying 2 businesses. They're not even competitors. They're doing not the same thing, but really helping each other. There's a lot of synergies.
Yeah, synergy.
Again, 4 million EBITDA. It's a big business. So, what were some of the challenges when looking back? You're like, okay, this was very hard. Thank God I overcame it.
Yeah, there's definitely a few of those. So, my knowledge of the industry, of the finance realm, I guess you would say, was the biggest hurdle. Like learning on the go. There was a big sticking point, was the working capital adjustment of the deal. And I'll reiterate, I did not know these terms going into this. I guess you would say quite naive. So that was a big thing where it's like, okay, we've agreed to this deal, but he's not an accountant or a financier either. We didn't know this, and now we have to negotiate this after the deal's been done. So that was a little tense. We both handled it. He handled it well, or when I wasn't it wasn't a fight or anything like that, but it was something I was like, okay, I need to make sure that the next time I do this, I am the expert in this, so that when I approach a family-run company with the owner-operator style that doesn't necessarily have a finance background, I can let them lean on me a bit and be a trustworthy source of information. Whereas in this deal, it was more like, sorry, I'm learning on the fly here. I hope you can accept my apology. I want to get this deal done. I want to get you your money, but you're gonna have to work with me here a little bit as I go through this. So that was a big one. And after I completed this, I've taken a few LBO modeling courses and whatnot, just so I have a better understanding. Because yeah, I mean, I guess it is a bit embarrassing, right? When you go and you're like, okay, I'm gonna try. You're kind of selling yourself a bit to these people, where you're like, okay, I can take your company, I can give you lots of money for it. You've worked your whole life for this, and I'm going to be the one to deliver it to you. And then when you feel like, okay, I don't know, I made a mistake here. I'm sorry about this. It's quite embarrassing. So I don't want to repeat it. I'm very fortunate and grateful that my partner didn't nix the deal because of it. We ended up working out a fair deal, but that's definitely the big challenge was the working capital adjustments, and it was basically my ignorance to that that almost kiboshed and blew up in my face. Another challenge, I guess, since the acquisition is I've been looking to add more, and one of our plans with Northern Diesel is to expand via acquisition, since now I have a better understanding of it. And I think I was very, very lucky that the first call I ever made turned into a deal in a few months. Since then, I think I'm getting a little more slap of reality, because it's 100. You can make 100 calls and 0 turnout. You'll get financials, and it's like, okay, this is an investable company, or they're not interested, or they don't return your email. So that's, I think, the realism of the private equity space is becoming a little more relevant.
Awesome. This is such an awesome story that you made. It was the first call, and right away you bought a huge business.
That's right. Yeah. And you know what? Right around that time, I probably started following you on Twitter, and I make my first call. I'm like, hey, this is easy. Like, you call these guys up, and then they sell your business. And then I started realizing, oh, I got very lucky here. This was some shit luck that this guy was willing to negotiate with me, because as I'm now coming to realize, and you are very aware, it's not that easy to just phone people up and get them to sell you a significant portion of the company.
Yes, but at the same time, I always ask, as it's very hard, all the process, finding a great deal, buying a great business, at the end of the day, how many of those do you need during your life? Not too many.
That's right.
As
That's
you
right.
said.
Mm-hmm. That's right. If I get 3 or 4 more of these in my life, I mean, I'll be happy. I'll live happily ever after. My wife and I will not want for anything. I'll build a family. So I'm lucky in that regard. But it was it is kind of an eye-opening experience to be rejected, to say no, like, who are you? Get out of here, you. And I think a lot of people will probably see me and they're like, this guy, like, he looks like he's 16 years old. I'm not investing with him. I can't trust him. But once I realized how the banks work, it is a doable thing to acquire multiple businesses, which I'm trying to, I guess, share that knowledge with my family and friends and say, look, like, this is a viable business plan, and you can find a business you're passionate in, structure a similar deal. Maybe you'll need some capital, maybe you won't, and then you can operate this business. In my case, I wanted an operator because I wanted him to stay on, and so I can do multiple deals. But if you were willing to just run your own, this is a great business plan for a lot of folks who I don't think are aware that this is even an option.
I'm curious, how was the reaction from your friends? I mean, you're from entrepreneurial family. Your dad probably was like, okay, well done, Ethan, but nothing too crazy, you know. But some of your friends, I guess they're not entrepreneurs, but now you bought two businesses within a very short period of time. Like, how was their reaction?
Yeah, only my good buddy, he was the best man at my wedding. He's the one that kind of really knows the intimacy of the deal, and he was quite like, holy, like, you know, I mean, we used to be, him and I were roommates, and he said something along the lines of, we were drinking, playing Xbox 2 years ago, and now you own a company all by yourself. You've acquired an entire company and learned all these things. So it is kind of sometimes I don't really understand what's been done, or I guess it hasn't set in, if that makes sense, because you're right. Like, in my family, it is. I mean, we've never done anything like this. It's always been startups, but it is the norm to own a company. Like, ever since I was 10 or 11, I assumed, okay, I'm gonna own a company one day. I'm gonna be a boss. I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. Watching Dragon's Den or Shark Tank growing up when I was young, like, those are my favorite shows. I always thought those are awesome. I was like, I want to pitch a company, make a company, and be an entrepreneur. So I guess it's I'm fortunate, grateful, but not surprised, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So what were maybe some of the unexpected costs during all this deal making? I mean, you mentioned lawyers, but there you said you were able to maybe saving is not the best word, but just saving a bit of capital because you were able to do two deals at once. So what were maybe some of the other, like, unexpected costs, which, as you don't have this experience, what was it?
Yeah. So I was using our accountant in our existing company and our lawyer at our existing company. The accountant, basically, I said, hey, the bank is asking me for these things. Can you meet? And it was becoming quite a few meetings, and not a lot was getting done. And about a month later, I got a bill for $5,000 from him, and I was like, $5,000 is quite a bit to me. Like, I don't have an unlimited budget here. I'm trying to do this as cash free as possible, and I actually haven't gotten anything from you. So I stopped using him after that, and that's when I started learning I did the requirements of the bank, the cash flow projecting and the financial statement projecting. I did it on my own because I was like, I can't afford an accountant and a lawyer, and I'm definitely not willing to learn the legal part of this. So I'll hire the lawyer, and I'll do the accounting work on my own.
So now a little bit about the post-acquisition. If and what changed the first day you as a new owner of the business? What changed, and how was the conversation with the previous owner, or as the process is still going on? Like, did you change anything? Did you? I guess he introduced you to the other employees, the team. How was this?
Yeah, so we've had it's been pretty recent that this has happened, and I guess the big change is that we use both companies now. So my dad's company and then these companies, we work together. So we are sending each other quotes for potential customers, and when we here use their services, so we use them full time now. They were, like I had mentioned, they were fuel customers of ours, so we've lowered their fuel costs, things like that. They gave us discounts on their rates for us. As far as a plan to double or triple the company, that's not in place that we other than the idea to acquire another company, but we're I guess slowly merging the two, trying to find some cohesiveness. For an example, our Christmas parties are going to be joint. So we'll have all the employees from all three of the companies come and have a Christmas party. We are considering hiring, or sorry, not considering, but we're, I guess, developing a program so they can be a contractor fuel hauler for us in the winter. Because if they kind of, Northern Diesel kind of tow anything or haul anything. So we were hoping that maybe they could start hauling some fuel for us. So there's little things like that we've been able to introduce right away, just from day one. And you had mentioned that there were some synergies between the companies, and that was definitely one of the components of the deal that we had considered. Is that okay? We use them, they use us. We all know we have the same customers. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a town. Both companies are relatively well known in the fields. Our oil site work is an integral part to both companies, and we both have good relationships at different oil sites, so we can hopefully get each other on to different oil sites, things like that. Trying to balance both companies, or sorry, all three companies together.
Any changes on the management?
No, that was one thing that I wanted to make sure, was that the company that we're acquiring, or the companies, stay the same. We really liked what they were doing. I like both the owners there, so I didn't want anything drastic to change like that. Like I said, if in the future he feels like retiring, then we'll cross that bridge when it happens. But for the immediate future, we want all things to stay the same.
So the previous owner works pretty much everything is pretty much the same.
Yeah,
same hours, same commitment.
Yeah, and he's got a good organizational chart too. So he's got an operator under him. So he's still able to take he, like I said, he's from Australia, so he's still able to head back to Australia for a few months of the year. He's got it figured out, and we didn't want to take that away from him. I didn't want him to have to go back to the 80-hour work week after he had figured out a way to get himself out of it. That was a key part of it. That was kind of one of the selling features to him, was, hey, don't retire, stay on as a shareholder. Here's some cash for the immediate, but you already kind of have figured out a way to be less involved. So keep that up and keep it going for us. And he had liked that idea.
But what about you in this new role? I guess you still consider yourself as an investor. You're not.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not day to day over there. I think what the future would hold for me, as far as the day to day goes, is to acquire another company, and then I think I would like to be an operator at that company to just learn more things about business. And hopefully that deal is with Northern Diesel, and that's how we expand it. And then I'll kind of get my feet in the water a bit in managing a company.
And when doing the due diligence for this business, did you find any improvements you can make? Maybe starting from increasing the prices, for example, or how often has the previous owner doing this? Because there have been many guests on the podcast who bought the business, and the first thing they did was they raised the prices, because very often times the previous owner,
they for some reason hadn't done it for maybe 10 years, and by just raising prices 20, 30, 50%, they lost some of the customers, but the overall revenue increased a lot, and obviously the return on capital so much higher.
Right. That is when I, especially reading through your tweets and articles, I kind of am at that point where it's like, okay, now that you've got the company, how do you like you, for example, you say you buy companies and then double the revenue, right? So that's
the goal.
Right, that's the goal, right? So that's where I'm kind of at in my journey is, okay, now that I got this thing, how do I blow it up? So yeah, there's a few ideas like that. As far as the pricing goes, I think it's competitive. There's one other main competitor in town, and we're right on line with them. So we couldn't just raise a drastic amount, but our fueling and oil prices, we've been able to save on that because of my dad's company. Since we've partnered, so that's quite a bit of a savings there, just right off the bat.
And when it comes to growing those businesses, you mentioned before your goal would be to do it using M&A. So do you have any targets already, or how has it been? I mean, you've been just owning the business for reasonably short times, so.
Yeah, no, I'm back I'm on the market looking around. I've contacted brokers now, just saying, hey, if you have any listings, let me know. I will not need your services, but if you have any sellers, let me know. Reach out to me. So I've it's funny, they start calling pretty quickly once you kind of get your name out there. I've considered starting a kind of a website, or even a LinkedIn. I should probably do that, just to have my name out there a little bit. So when somebody gets an email from Macdonald Financial, they don't just say, "Who is this? What is this? Some spam email?" But yeah, there's a few companies. There's a metropolis, I guess, 4 hours south of my town, and that's kind of the head office area. That's where I think we would like to expand next, and have some sort of trucking company. Not necessarily the exact same thing as Northern Diesel, but just keep continuing in the trucking field, because I know it and I understand it, and I already have companies involved in that. So moving locations and then also staying in the trucking industry will be the key factors for my next acquisition.
So your plan is not to look outside of those current industries, because this is where you've been for a long time and you understand it, right?
Yeah, just at least in the immediate future. I think at some point I would like to kind of delve into more of the financial realm of things, maybe look at accounting firms or that kind of stuff. But as of right now, I want to stay in the trucking industry, as that is my forte.
And what about yourself? Do you see maybe, when it comes to next deals, you moving from being an investor to an operator, or you still prefer to do what you've been doing so far, looking for a deal, looking for next deals, and then maybe being this strategic guy when it comes to growing and running those businesses?
Yeah, I think I would like to be an operator on the next one, and then just get one completely done, where I have from start to finish acquired a company, did all the accounting and financial work for it, and then paid off the debt to the bank, own it outright, and then then I can kind of look at saying, okay, I don't want to necessarily operate companies anymore. I want to do is buy multiple companies in a year, where I'm buying hopefully four a year or something like that. But I would like to be debt free before I start that part of kind of the serial acquiring. I think operator is what I would like to do next, and that will keep me busy and also teach me quite a bit.
So you've owned the businesses for quite a short time. Has there been any massive challenges so far? I don't know, someone calling you 5 a.m. that there is some type of issue with the truck or something like this?
No. So luckily, yeah, my partner that call would probably go to him before me. He's in charge of the operation, so that's where I'm fortunate in that I kind of have him as a safety pad. I didn't have to dive 2 feet in. So yeah, no, I haven't had to deal with anything like that, luckily. But I assume that will be in my future if I continue down this route.
Okay, we talked a little bit about the future, but maybe more specific, what do you want to accomplish maybe within the next 4 or 5 years? I guess with that time you've paid off the debt of acquiring those businesses. So what's next afterwards?
Yeah, so 4 or 5 years, hopefully, 3, 4 companies under my belt, a couple deals, and then maybe at that point, one of them I would look at exiting just so I have cash myself. It would just make sure that my family's future is secure. But each year, each 4 or 5 year increment, I want to just become more aggressive, bigger and better, buying bigger companies, more of them at a time. And then maybe I would like to bring somebody on to work with me, or a few people to work with me, and kind of just grow our footprint so that it's any good company that meets our criteria is a possibility. I would hate to see a company that I would like and would work that I lose out on because I didn't know about it. So that's kind of my goal. I want to keep growing the financial side of my company, and then also the operations of the actual trucking companies.
I forgot to ask before, when you were negotiating the deal and the terms with the previous owner, did you have to promise to him, or he asked from you to not to sell the business, or he was asking like, what are you planning to do within the next 5 to 7 years? Because oftentimes what private equity does is they build the business and they eventually sell it. So what was maybe his question, and what was your answer?
Yeah, so we do have a clause where we have each party will have first right of refusal, but the overall agreement is that we would probably go together if he wanted to leave. So as it stands now, like if he wanted to exit, we would leave together. He was never really worried about us leaving because it would make more. I'm the young one. He's in his mid 40s or late 40s. So if somebody were leaving, it would be him. Hopefully at that time, I have the option to just acquire the rest of his shares and keep the business going if I want to. That would be a goal of mine. I would just not. I would hate to be forced out of a good company that I like and is making good money. And I know traditional private equity does kind of the 5-7 year plan, but I think what my main goal will be is the evergreen process, and just trying to acquire as many assets as possible, and not feel the need to sell any, and keep the companies for myself and pass them down for generations.
Okay, perfect. We covered a lot. Did I forget to ask something, or is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I just want to say, like, your platforms like yourself are quite a big help to people like me who have no idea about any of this and want to take a risk. And so I guess I would like to say thank you for running your page and your articles. They were quite a big help to me, and lots of the stories you've covered are inspirations of mine, and I hope to be like some of those people that you've interviewed and like yourself. So thank you.
Yeah, man, you are the inspiration. You're actually doing such a big thing, so it's so awesome. You're many steps ahead of me. I know you're still very young, but how has entrepreneurship and building this very small holding company changed your life and changed your family life so far?
Well, I think for the better. Like my wife is fully supportive of everything. She's the best investment I'll ever make. We have the same goals. We want to make sure that, if I feel like it, I can stay home for a day and hang out with her and our kids, and or our hopeful kids, and we want to make sure our kids can play in sports if they want to and have their resources. So I guess the entrepreneurship is changing my life for the better. It's freeing, and an important thing that I think is underrated is that going to work, I truly love this stuff. I love learning these things. I love the financial modeling. I love Excel, all the nerdy stuff. So I look forward to going to work, which is great. It's nice. It's nice to to take passion in something you do.
You definitely are passionate about, because we are doing this and it's your Sunday morning, so it's an important thing to mention. Not only doing this, but you enjoy talking about this.
Yeah, I do enjoy talking about it, and maybe to my wife's chagrin.
Let's wrap up with the famous five.
Okay.
Again, how old are you?
24.
Favorite book?
I'm gonna say Meditations, Marcus Aurelius.
What car do you drive?
A Ford Bronco Sport.
What's the best investment advice you've ever got?
I'm gonna go with Rich Dad Poor Dad. Don't go to school, don't get a job, but get into debt.
Man, you have such a wild story, honestly, doing all this by just being 24. It seems so easy when you're sharing the journey. So I'm sure so many people would like to add additional questions, something I forgot to ask. So where can people find you?
Well, like I kind of mentioned, I don't have much of a social media presence. I should probably get on that, but I'll give out my email. It's Ethan, ETHAN, at MacDonaldFinancial.net, and Macdonald is MAC. So feel free to email me if anybody is looking for something. If you're ever in the area and you want to meet up for a coffee or whatnot, or a tour, I'd be more than willing to. Let's see if there's any relationships that can be formed.
Awesome. Yeah. Ethan, thanks a lot for doing this, especially doing this on the Sunday morning for you. So excellent story, and thanks for sharing it.
Thanks, Mick. Thanks for having me on.